All right. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for coming this morning. After a few weeks of being out on the road with our news conferences on Thursdays, we were breaking ground on the Mission Valley Fire Station, talking about human trafficking. It's good to be back here on the 13th floor. We're going to talk a little bit about, or quite a bit about, homelessness this morning, but of course, be happy to take questions on any subject that you're interested in. Just a reminder, or stating the obvious, this is my last media briefing before our new mayor is elected, but I'm not ready for a swan song yet. I want to provide some details about a topic that I touched upon in the State of the City address last month, and that's the way that I believe our city can better spend our limited resources on the challenge that is homelessness. Now, just over a year ago, I think some of you remember, I set the goal of ending homelessness in downtown by 2016. In addition to the direct benefit from helping individuals break the cycle of homelessness, investing in solutions has a positive impact on the city and saves taxpayers money. Without these critical homeless services and programs, we will continue to see an increased need for law enforcement, emergency services, and neighborhood code compliance activities. Just to put in some perspective, we have a slide here on the screen. There are 50, as of the point of time count in 2013, we had 5,733 homeless individuals in the city of San Diego. I think probably most troubling of that is that over 3,100 of them were unsheltered. It is my belief that we cannot claim to be America's finest city if we have thousands of people sleeping on our streets, in our canyons, in our public rights of way. And we can and must do better. That's why I want to propose today reallocating the city's commitment from its general fund on homeless services to have better outcomes and hopefully get us closer to the goal of ending this problem in our community. This year's city budget committed $1.9 million from the general fund to extend operations at both winter shelter programs. I know that there's a better way of using that money that will result in greater progress toward ending homelessness. In addition to these shelter-specific funds, the city also allocates resources through other departments, like the San Diego Police Department, for homeless-related services. I am recommending allocating the same amount of general fund money, $1.9 million, for homeless services in fiscal year 2015, but directing these funds toward outcomes-focused services and critical program enhancements that will result in the most efficient use of our resources and a coordinated system that actually has the goal of ending homelessness. My plan has 7 key components. The first is for the enhanced single adult winter shelter and veterans winter shelter. We are proposing making an $800,000 investment that would enable shelter providers to improve their assessment and case management services offered and partner closely with existing integrated homeless outreach efforts, thereby increasing the opportunities for homeless people living in the tents or shelters to be placed in more stable and permanent housing so that we can, in fact, end the cycle of homelessness for those individuals. This allocation would fully fund the single adult winter shelter, which does not currently have any funding identified, and augment the CDBG funding for the veterans winter shelter from November until March 31st during the coldest and wettest months of our year. Our anticipated outcome from this enhancement, based on discussions with providers, is that 60% of shelter residents will elect to engage in case management, 45% of shelter residents will exit to more permanent housing, and 20% of shelter residents will exit to permanent housing. Our second key component is coordinated assessment, coordinated entry, and homeless management information systems. Fancy way of saying IT. This is a one-time investment of $400,000 that would provide funding to support the regional continuum of care's creation of a coordinated intake and assessment system applicable to all organizations operating throughout the city and region, addressing the needs of the homeless and service programs. This is currently an unfunded federal mandate, but it is critical to securing nearly $16 million in funding from the federal government, particularly the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, for the city and county of San Diego every year for homeless services and programs. So this is something that we need to do, yet we don't have identified funding for. This is how I'm trying to identify the funding. It's my hope and expectation that by having coordinated real-time or near real-time information, we'll be able to provide services in a more coordinated and efficient manner, again, making better use of the limited dollars that we currently have. It's our expectation that by the end of fiscal year 2015, the technology and tools that we'll be funding will be in place, again, allowing for near real-time or near real-time data enhancement. Number 3 is the serial inebriate program expansion. Some of you know and are fans of this serial inebriate program. I certainly am one of them too. It has positively impacted hundreds of chronic homeless alcoholics who cycle in and out of detoxification centers, county jail, and local emergency rooms. By providing intensive case management and access to housing, clients are able to improve their well-being and achieve long-term recovery. Now, some of you know the history. Since 2007, SIP's budget has been cut by 34%. Because of the by 34%, inhibiting its ability to operate at full capacity. At the same time, the economic recovery in the housing market is causing rents to increase and shortening the lifespan of the housing subsidies provided to SIP clients. An allocation of $120,000 would restore SIP to its pre-reduction funding levels and nearly triple the number of individuals capable of being served by this valuable program. It also would make additional 20 units or beds available to SIP participants, increasing the total SIP-supported units and beds to 32. I think this is an important investment and one that's worth making. Number 4, the Neil Good Day Center enhancement. Currently, the Neil Good Day Center provides homeless individuals access to showers, mail services, computers, medical care, and other case management services. In addition, the Neil Good Day Center serves as a point of entry to San Diego's full array of homeless services. An additional $80,000 would enhance the services of the Neil Good Day Center offers, including targeted case management and increased opportunities to connect homeless people to programs. It is our belief in speaking with providers that this would result in 60% of day center clients would elect to receive case management service. 45% of those day center clients would elect to receive case management services would be placed in more permanent housing, and 20% of those day center clients electing to receive case management services would be placed in permanent housing. Number 5, the homeless outreach team enhancement. With an allocation of $40,000 to link for the HOT team, we would better link local housing and service providers to enhance street homeless and engagement and services currently provided to homeless individuals. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied. It's because I like HOT that much. With the additional funding, each HOT rotation would include alternating members of the service provider community. Together, the combined knowledge of police officers and assigned to HOT and the service providers would be a great asset for engaging homeless individuals and linking them with appropriate services. The San Diego Housing Commission would work with participating providers to set aside housing inventories for eligible individuals encountered by HOT officers while they're on patrol. Our belief is that this would result in up to 50 interim beds would be made available with existing shelter capacity to be used by HOT and enhanced outreach team for direct interim housing placement. Number 6, the Homeless Transition Storage Facility. Currently, this program is operated by the Girls Think Tank, and the storage facility provides a place for 350 homeless families and individuals to safely store their personal belongings. This has the added benefit of getting items off of our public right-of-ways and out of our neighborhoods. For the previous 2 years, the facility has been sustained with private contributions and funds allocated by council members. Allocating $150,000 per year would fully fund the facility's annual operating budget, including relocation funds to rent property if necessary. Our anticipated outcome was this would allow for the continuation of the storage bins for the homeless to store their belongings not in the streets or in our canyons. This would revise program criteria to limit the use of the storage bins to currently homeless individuals, and we would enhance data collection to further analyze program use and effectiveness. I shared with you in December that the storage facility was facing a challenge because the property is on its way to being used for another purpose. I don't want to speak too soon, but I will share that an anticipated long-term solution is hoped to be announced fairly soon. Finally, our last component is Connections Housing funding gap. In its first year of operation, Connections Housing Downtown has become an essential component of the city's homeless services. More than 500 homeless individuals have been positively impacted since the center opened in March of 2013. After recognizing the higher level of services that the building's residents required, the intensive services budget was implemented immediately, resulting in a budget gap of almost $400,000. We are going to commit $300,000 per year to help ensure PATH's continued success in essential services, and development partners will continue to pursue private fundraising and public grants to fill the remaining gap. And I want to just provide a correction. The slide has a small typo. It should be $300,000, not $400,000. It is my intention to work with our next mayor and with the city council so that these allocations are included in the fiscal year 2015 budget, which will be considered this spring. In addition to the $1.9 million of general fund money that I've just outlined, funding for the Neil Good Day Center, the Veterans Shelter Program, Cortez Hill Family Center, and the annual contribution to Path Connections Housing should continue through the CDBG program in an amount not to exceed about $1.3 million. I want to note that these discretionary monies are no longer used to fund the single adult emergency shelter. This is consistent with the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of San Diego and the San Diego Housing Commission for the provision of homeless services. I'd also like to ask my fellow San Diegans and our business community to contribute to these solutions. We have seen tremendous collaboration and participation from local businesses in recent years, and they've stepped in to help work with the city and service providers. That help has been transformational. It has allowed for a momentum on this issue, unlike anything I've seen in recent years, and it needs to continue. I'll be reaching out to see if there are other ways that we can work together and collaborate on our shared goal of ending homelessness. Obviously, I want folks to know that these programs are working. Developing measurement tools to assess their effectiveness will occur this year as well, with the goal of replicating successful programs elsewhere in the city, like in areas around the San Diego River, in the uptown and mid-city communities, and near our beaches. It is no secret that homelessness is a difficult challenge, but it's one that I know that we can address, and by being more creative with the use of our limited funds, we can make a far greater difference in the lives of our neediest neighbors, and helping them towards self-sufficiency and ending the cycle of homelessness makes economic sense for taxpayers. I'm happy to take questions on this proposal or on anything else that's before the city right now. Gene.
Todd, how would you address the pushback that we so often get every time we air and publish web stories about this? We get tweets and emails saying, round them up and kick them out of town. The more you make the city homeless friendly, the more you attract them here. From Skid Row in LA, Vegas, Phoenix, and stuff like that. You're saying spend the money smarter, but the one phrase I keep hearing is, you feed a stray cat, you're gonna have a whole litter there.
Right. Well, I disagree with that approach. First off, it's not very particularly compassionate. I think that San Diegans are a compassionate city. We don't want 5,000 people in our city or 8,000 in our county without shelter. And I don't believe these are attractors. I think that it's dealing with the problem that we're seeing in front of us. Whether or not, to simply ignore the problem means that taxpayers are going to continue to foot the bill, and that bill is much higher than it would be if we address this problem more aggressively and from a more preventative standpoint. So I disagree with that. I certainly hear those concerns, but it doesn't match up with the reality of the fact that we have thousands of people who are presently here that we have to do something about, and this is affecting the quality of life of San Diegans. You don't have to be homeless to be impacted by the homeless problem. So I believe that that's a minority point of view. I think the vast majority of San Diegans want to see the nonprofit sector, the public sector, and the private sector to step up and do something about this, and this is what we're going to do.
Can I take this one step further?
Sure.
I see and hear the pushback that, well, it's a police thing. Beef up the police, roust them, run them out of town like they do in Phoenix and Vegas, give them a bus ticket to somewhere else. I notice you have a lieutenant here that might be able to explain why that logistically and legally under constitutional law doesn't work, won't work. Is that, could she maybe address?
Well, you do point out the Constitution is a pretty critical document in our nation, and I tend to.
Logistically as well.
I did swear an oath to it when I took on this job, so we're going to follow the Constitution. But Gene, we actually have a program, a pilot program in downtown called the Work Your Way Home program, where if you spend a couple days on the streets of downtown cleaning up and providing some help, we will provide you with a bus ticket home after we know in fact that we're sending you back to somebody. We're not just sending you home with no one else on the other end to receive. But that's just one of many programs that we have. And where did you start with that?
Logistically, you can never get enough police on the streets.
Well, that's right. Let me be clear. This is not a public safety issue. This is a public health issue. The vast majority of our homeless individuals are folks who have mental illnesses, substance abuse issues, other kinds of concerns. And these folks, unfortunately do interact with public safety more than I'd like. And that's my point about how much more expensive it is for them to interact with our police officers than it would be to interact with a social worker. And our point is that, with adequate health care and with some supportive housing, we can get these folks off the streets. I'm seeing my colleagues in cities like Phoenix and elsewhere that are declaring an end to homelessness for veterans. I mean, this is possible and achievable in other communities. We need to do this here in San Diego as well.
What about the number of, you mentioned thousands on the street that flat out refused shelter and help? What do you do about those?
The question was about those who refuse help, and there are some of those, but I think those are also a minority. I think, frankly, a lot of the folks that we're dealing with, they are willing to come off the streets. It does take some intensive help. It does take, adequate case management, a social worker who's able to sit down and work with them. I participated in the point in time count 2 weeks ago. The individuals I came across are folks who've had long-term homelessness. I mean, they've been on the streets for decades, and it's not that they don't want to get off the streets, but I don't think they see ways out for them, or that they have to wait in line to get services, and in that length of time, the connection just isn't made. There are some that frankly, I had a conversation with one woman who simply, I think as a result of some trauma and some assaults that she'd experienced in her life, doesn't feel safe within four walls. She phrased to me that she needs to be in a place where she can get away quickly if she needed to. But I think that that's something that with some mental health counseling and stuff like that, she is able to get off the street. So that is a minority point of view. And the fact of the matter is the majority of folks are not wanting to be on the streets. They're there as a result of their healthcare conditions, of their economic circumstances, and we can and must do something about that. Kelly?
Did you say that the winter shelter would continue year-round, or
No.
when does it revert back to?
The previous administration funded the shelter system until the end of March, and that's when the funding in the current budget will run out.
In March
Of this year, in about a month's time or 2 months' time. So we don't have adequate funding for that. The funding that I'm talking about would be starting on July 1 in terms of the $1.9 million that I outlined in the 7 points. And that would allow for a shelter program that would operate from essentially November to March. What we're asking for is a more outcomes-based approach in making sure that we are seeing people actually get off the streets. I know that that's the intent of both of the current providers. We want to hold them a little more accountable going forward. But the representation that the tents were going to be open year-round is illusory. It wasn't funded that way, and it's one of the things that we've been trying to deal with. As someone who actually ran for office, because I'm deeply concerned about this issue, I don't want to see us to reduce our financial commitment to this issue and simply say that the year-round tent system didn't work and therefore we should just give those monies elsewhere. We have a significant problem, as I outlined, in terms of the thousands of people who are homeless. We should not reduce our commitment. We should keep the commitment at its current funding level, but use those dollars in more effective places where we know the outcomes are more likely to result in people getting off the streets permanently.
Although right now the shelter's used as a kind of way station until another bed can open up someplace else. So what's gonna fill that need? When Kelly Knight finds someone out in the street and needs to know where they're gonna be when a bed opens up. So I mean, where the emergency bed's gonna come from if the shelter's closed?
Well, there's a part of why we want to make the investment in the homeless management information system in order to get some real-time data for service providers and potentially even for police officers to know where unoccupied beds are. We have worked with the Downtown Partnership and the Housing Commission to try and hold beds in certain places, potentially Connections Housing, so that you would have a place if an individual says, I'm ready to go, that we'd have a place to put them. These are my concern and my belief, and I've said this about the winter tent system in the past. I don't think San Diegans only care about the homeless for 16 weeks in the wintertime. I think they do care about them 52 weeks a year. But the approach with the tents, I think, has not necessarily had the outcomes that we want to see. And when you look at programs like the HOT team, like the SIP team, and what's going on at Connections, those are places where we can make a larger investment and I think get a better outcome.
Do you see the homeless or a means for them to be able to sort of give back to the community too, in the sense that they're being helped to try to get out of the situations that they're in, but something as simple as going out on a daily basis to clean up the areas and the health concerns, the animals and the defecation, those kinds of things. Do you see them being able to kind of own some responsibility and some give back to the community to share in what's going on?
Questions about the homeless giving back to the community. I think that they do have a responsibility to do that to the extent that they're able, and I think actually that they do. One of the great things I think about the tent system that we have currently operating is that the participants actually do go around the neighborhood and do pick up garbage. And I've heard anecdotally that for Barrio Logan that's what occurs. I know that Alpha Project really asks that of the participants that are there. So some of that occurs. As I mentioned before, the Work Your Way Home program isn't just a free ticket. You do have to work in advance to do it. But I think the best contribution that a homeless individual can give to their city for these in exchange for these investments is to get into care, get their conditions addressed, and get off the streets. By doing that, they will save our city money, and that's a wonderful contribution. And so it's interesting, I had a conversation with a gentleman just the other day who approached me asking what he could do. He is a homeless individual, but what you're saying, he wanted to give back to his city. My simple request for him was to do his very best to get off the streets, and we tried to connect him with somebody because, again, I think that's the best that he can do. When you understand that in this case, this individual's case, he was dealing with some significant mental illness, the most that he's probably capable of providing is the ability to take care of himself. And if that frees up some of my police officers to respond to more urgent calls, or if we end up spending less because we're not carrying them to the emergency room on some frequent basis, that all accrues to the city's benefit. And that's why every San Diegan should care about this issue.
Do you have a commitment from the mayoral candidates that they will follow this plan?
Within the limitations of the Brown Act, we have we have had indications. Council members provide budget priority memos each year. Those were heard at committee actually, they were heard at full council on Tuesday, and council members, we had 5 council members indicate support for this approach, which is the magical number around here. And I believe that both council members, Faulkner and Alvarez, have indicated support for this concept. I think that they know that I think they know 2 things that I know. One is that our limited resources can be spent more efficiently and effectively to get better outcomes. I think they also know that we probably can't hope for a great deal of relief from our federal government or for our state government, and so we do have to look locally for resources. And so I would anticipate that I will have their support going forward. Anyone else?
On a new
Jim?
topic, late yesterday, City Attorney Jan Goldsmith put out a very lengthy memorandum with a review of these charter provisions that he wants to see at least to be looked at by a commission and the mayor and council people and stuff. Wanted to see if you had a chance to go through all that and what your opinion was.
I haven't had a chance to read it. I know that he has been working aggressively on this. I know our Council President Pro Tem, Sherry Leitner, has also been working aggressively on this. You will see some charter revisions on the ballot in June. I think largely ones that our city clerk has championed. I think we all know that 2013 illustrated that there are a number of flaws with our charter that need addressing. I think that we're committed to pursuing those. Our city attorney had promised that he would give a legal analysis of areas that need addressing. I believe that that's what the memo intends to address. The next step would be for the council to really vet that and decide which ones we want to put forward to the voters for their consideration, and I suspect that we will do that. Gene?
With respect to one of those, he makes broad reference to including a section that would provide for the removal of the mayor and or council members, other city offices, on grounds of misconduct not involving a criminal violation or incapacity by health or other means by 2/3 vote of the council. And he put, I guess, 3 other cities among 10 that they look at have that general provision that doesn't define misconduct, but it doesn't require that there be a criminal conviction entered. Your threshold view of his thought that there should be something like that?
Well, again, I think 2013, there are some lessons learned in there for all of us, and that we should have a healthy discussion at the council about that. My bottom line on this, though, is that I don't believe that we should be amending our charter based on the actions of one individual. This document needs to endure time and individuals and personalities, right? And so I could see something like that coming forward eventually, but it would have to be something for at least this council member to support, that it really is a reflection of best practices and lessons learned, as opposed to just simply a reaction to one individual's bad conduct. Chairman?
I have a homelessness question.
I love that.
First, I want to make sure I understand that your vision is basically that these services get tested and and they start downtown, and then in future years or in the future, you spread them out in other parts of the city. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I'm going to say yes because I think that we have more momentum in downtown than we have in other communities when it comes to trying to solve this problem. That has largely to do with history. I think downtown has borne the brunt of this problem for the longest time. Unfortunately, though, I think what we have seen in recent years is this problem is spreading to other parts of our community. And those communities haven't had the same historical experience and therefore don't have the same infrastructure in place to tackle this problem. When you look at the Downtown Business Association groups that have worked for a long time with their property owners or their businesses who have major philanthropic efforts to try and raise funds to address this problem. When you look at where the infrastructure and the services are, they're largely in downtown. So I think that we can take that momentum, create processes that work, and then export them to other communities where we think they can also work. But that isn't to say that these services are contained only in downtown. Certainly the SIP program, the HOP program, is not just in downtown. They operate citywide. Obviously the Veterans Tent is not in downtown. So we need to address these concerns everywhere. I just believe that the momentum on the whole is good. The momentum is probably most acute in downtown, and that I believe that the residents and businesses in downtown are willing to experiment with some of these new concepts, and to the extent that they're proven successful, willing to ship them elsewhere. So when you see like the donation stations, the check-in center, the Work Your Way Home program, these are things that are unique to downtown, but don't have to be. And I've had a meeting just yesterday with our Hillcrest business group, asking them to work closely with downtown to see which of those current models could be utilized in their community. I expect them to report back to me in the middle of this year on what they think that they can accomplish, and I'm certainly game to try and help them do that.
The $400,000 for the HMIS system,
Mhm.
is the city, are there other, is the county also putting in money for that?
We've been in discussions with the county, or mentioned it to them. My hope is that they would participate, but if they choose not to, I don't want to wait to acquire this critical piece of information technology for two reasons. One, as I mentioned, it's critical to actually drawing down federal funds going forward. So we're not leaving $16 million on the table, and I don't care if that accrues to whose benefit that accrues to, the city and the county. If the city has to fund it, we'll fund it. So we remains to be seen. But
Is that the total amount that's needed, or is it just part of what's needed?
we have philanthropic commitment. Jessica, can you help me?
Yeah, there's some philanthropic commitments as well. There's about $150,000 needed to purchase the equipment and technology to basically build this data warehouse. But on top of that, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to augment that. The HUD, the federal unfunded mandate is a coordinated assessment, coordinated intake. So there's building that system around the data integration as well. That money will go towards.
But it's my understanding the $400,000 will allow us to go live by the end of
By the
2015.
end of 2015, and leverage other philanthropic commitments as well.
It's my understanding Qualcomm is assisting with some of the architecture of the solution. And
That's my understanding, yes.
right. Others? Yes, sir. Carlos? Oh, you do afterward? Okay. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the attention you can bring to bear on this issue. It's a significant one. Of the things, the initiatives I'm pursuing in this last month or so, this is the one I really want to put a lot of time on. So your help in getting this word out is key. We are not backing off of our commitment. We're just going to make sure that what we're spending is being spent wisely and the most effectively. And I think that at the end of the day, it's reasonable to assume that we can tackle this problem in our city. We are a great city, and great cities can tackle this issue. So let's get it done. Thank you, guys.
One question, not
OG.
necessarily for the record. What do you imagine the schedule is after the election for the transfer of power, as it were? What are we looking at?
So the question is about how does this look? So we have the election on February 11th. Presuming that the ballots are counted in what we think is a reasonable amount of time, we believe the new mayor would be seated on March 3rd. My office has been getting calls about what happens after that. The council would pass a resolution that day ratifying the election. The new mayor would be seated. We would also declare the council seat, either way, vacant, and then begin the application process for a new council member who would serve until the new council member is elected in November, taking office in December. So we have a number of key dates that we're lining up now. This is going to be very orderly. My staff is preparing now to make sure that we don't really miss a beat in handing the baton to the next mayor, and we'll be on the other side of that, making sure that we also ensure that either council districts 2 or 8 will be well represented within about 30 days.
And the appointee would be barred from running for election?
Correct. The appointee, which will, they will make an application to the city clerk. They'll be vetted and appointed by the city council. That individual would be prohibited from running in the June or November elections. So they would serve from August until early December. And so we will start that process again as soon as the seat is vacated, which we anticipate will be March 3rd. If for whatever reason the election takes longer to count the votes, if whatever, there may be some falling back by a week or two, because these have to be publicly noticed meetings and of the council. But it's our best guess is is March 3rd for the handover to a new mayor and a new council member being seated sometime in early April.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Have a great afternoon.